just a huge advocate in paying it forward and making someone else's life better in any way you can, as free as a smile. The power and the impact of that is huge. You may not even know it. You might even not know it, but that person does. And that person walked away with a different feeling because you smiled at them.
Welcome to Events Demystified podcast, where we explore and demystify the world of in-person, virtual, hybrid event AV production and technology by sharing insightful tips, tricks and tactics to make your events a success. This podcast is brought to you by Trifan Events, a woman-owned boutique event production agency. And your host is Anca Trifan, a technical event planner and producer with almost 2 decades of hands-on technical experience in event production.
Welcome to another episode of Events Demystified podcast, your one-stop shop for tangible, technical, and practical planning advice for anyone in the events industry. Today's episode is sponsored by Trifan Events, a woman-owned boutique production agency that provides the strategy, technology, and gear to host successful virtual and hybrid events. And I am your host, Anca Trifan. On the show with me today, I have Cindi Cohn, a dynamic, energetic, full of joy, experienced virtual educator with over 20 years of experience in the virtual space, who now has used her many gifts to help companies increase connection, creativity, and wellness for their virtual employees, especially their remote teams. And it is a true gift for the attendees that get to experience Cindi on the screen live with all her exuberance and her energy that she brings just to the next level. So I'm super excited to have her on. She's also an author. She has a book that's going to be publishing this month, and she's overjoyed to give it to the world. The world needs more joy, and Cindi walks the talk and is giving this joyful gift to the world soon. I'm super stoked to read this book. I couldn't be more excited about it, and I can't wait to get my own copy very soon and signed by Cindi. Wink, wink. In the meantime, let's invite her in. Welcome to the show, Cindi.
Wow, that was such a great introduction. I loved it. Thank you so much.
I love that you come with the sound effects.
Always.
How are you, my friend? I mean, you look amazing having come from your detox break.
Yes.
How are you feeling?
I am actually feeling, if it's possible, more overjoyed. I desperately needed a break. My body was telling me, my head was telling me I just didn't feel my best self. And I kept prolonging the break, like, soon, when I get in. Finally, I had a plan of when I was going to do it. I took it a couple days earlier than I was planned because I was like, I have to do it right now. I just had too much on my plate. And I was spreading myself too thin, and I just can't be all things to all people every minute. So I needed to do something to what I always talk about with people is refilling your own cup. And if I'm going to talk about it, I'm going to also do it myself. And it's sometimes actually pretty hard for me. I have to actually, over the years, literally force myself to do it, because even though I believe in it, it's so hard to take that break sometimes. But this time it was just the time, and I feel so much more clear, more energy. I mean, I can't even compare myself. Like, that break was needed. I feel like completely back to my old self, and maybe even more so energetic, if it's possible, just because I was able to spend a lot of time on the lake. And whenever I'm in water, it just gives me time to just really just detox and de-stress. And when I'm in water, all I do is see water around. It's peaceful, whatever. And it gave me clarity to think about things that I needed to make some decisions on. So it's been fantastic. I highly recommend a digital detox.
That's amazing. Couldn't agree more with what you just said earlier, where you can give out of an empty cup. So before you're able to fill other people's cups, you have to fill your own. And taking time off to just do all of the things that re-energize and refill your own cup is so important. But before we dive any deeper into wellness and self-care and what a social media detox done right looks like, tell our audience a little bit more about you, about your story, and what it's been your journey so far. Like, I would love to hear a little bit more of the Cindi behind closed doors. What is Cindi like behind closed doors?
Well, that's a great question.
Well, you can share as much as you're comfortable with sharing.
It's awesome because, as you know, one of the things about me is I'm always just going to be authentically who I am. So you're going to get what you get. I really just am an open book. That's one of the things that's like one of my core values, is to be authentically myself. So to be honest, I give out so much throughout the day, like speaking to people, LinkedIn, my work, create events. And, you know, when most people give at 100% energy level, I'm giving it like 250 for an event. And you know, you do events too. You know exactly what I'm talking about. So after a long day, I'm not always bouncing off the walls and miss personality at home. A lot of times I am, but there are definite days that I just literally shut down on the couch and I don't want to talk to anyone. I don't want to text anyone else. I'm like done. Again, it goes back to refilling my cup. I have to get my own energy back because I've given out so much. It really does take a lot out of you, but in a good way. You do have to replenish yourself. There's just not endless amounts of energy. If there is.
So how does one do a social media detox the right way?
Well, I don't know if it's the right or wrong way. I've done it now for several years. I do it like twice a year at least. After this one, I'm determined to do it much more often. Before this week or so detox, I was taking every weekend off already because I was already noticing that I was on social media too much. And when I say social media, the only platform I'm even on is LinkedIn. Yeah. I've already given up all the other ones. But LinkedIn can be just as time consuming as everything else because you meet great people and you want to uplift them and you want to talk back and forth. And it's kind of like you develop real relationships with the people. It does take a lot of time and energy. So I realized I was doing too much of that. I needed to focus more on the present moment and who's in front of me, my family and friends, and the things that I needed to do at home. I had already taken off the weekend. So it was just now a matter of not doing it for a week. I didn't have my phone for a lot of it. I would keep my phone away from me. That was one thing. And I've always recommended for people to, at a certain time at night, you should go hide your phone.
I know it's such a temptation, right?
It is. I have to hide it because you don't want to hear it if I see it.
But what happens with hiding your phone, but you still get notifications on your smartwatch? And now you're like, hide your smartwatch too. Or go all analog. Like, forget about the smartwatches. I'm just going to have my watch be like the old school analog watch, you know?
That is so funny. And I bet kids today, they probably don't even know how to read that. It's just amazing the technology that has changed. I think about stuff like that all the time. So I didn't have my phone a lot. When I did have my phone, it was in something, a purse or whatever. And I wasn't checking it. I wasn't eating my meals with it face down or on my lap or anything. I like completely just pretended it didn't exist. There was so much happiness and joy and freedom not being attached to my phone. So that's why I realized, you know what, I need to just make it more of my life because I noticed I just focus on different things. Like literally was playing games and stuff that I don't normally play, games like board games with family. Yeah. I mean, normally that's not something I would do. Like, you know, I worked on furniture refinishing and some painting projects and stuff, things that I just have taken for granted and not done. But you have, like, when you're not focusing on your fun, all of a sudden you have all this extra time. You didn't realize it.
Yeah. So sometimes maybe when we say that we're so busy all the time, which it is true, it just means that maybe we need to dial back on some of those extra tasks that maybe don't need to be done, like all the 3 times a day post on LinkedIn and on Instagram and on Twitter, and make sure you catch up with Facebook. And what about TikTok? Oh my God. gosh, it's like already overwhelming just thinking about it. This is the reason why, honestly, I personally love our camping ventures. When we go camping in the middle of the woods somewhere where there's definitely no Wi-Fi, there's no signal coverage either, I don't have that anxiety, temptation to constantly look at my phone. What if I miss something? What if somebody invited me to something that was important? And honestly, all those opportunities are great, but they can also wait. Like, if it's to be and to happen, it will happen. Like, you don't have to stress about it. Yeah, exactly. And having that moment of like just relaxing and not tapping into your devices so much. I mean, I see it on my kids. I can barely remove my kids from their tablets and this show and that show. And when I intentionally take them away, even though they do fight it, when they're out, they're really enjoying themselves. And then they never regret that time. And I'm like, man, we need to do this more often.
Exactly. I find that, in general, social media can really disrupt your peace, and it takes your mind off to if you're focusing on a task and they go bing, and then you look or whatever, then it's like 15 minutes go by because now you're distracted, and then you come back to it. It's kind of a waste of time. I decided I'm going to do like LinkedIn certain times, like early morning, maybe like 30 minutes. And then at night before I go to bed, 30 minutes or something like that, and not think about it, look at it in the middle and focus on what needs to be focused on instead of being distracted here and there.
Well, Cindi, you're such a joy evangelist. Can I call you a joy evangelist?
I've been called worse.
Tell our audience now, what does that mean and why is joy important and how is it different from like happiness? We all want to be happy. Very few people though talk about wanting to be joyful.
Yeah, that is true. So again, I see joy and happiness as not the same. Happiness seems to be like you're happy because of a circumstance that just happened. Like, oh, I got this really new watch. This is so cool. I'm happy about this new watch, like right now. Okay. It's more like materialistic. It's more in the moment. It's a happenstance. It's not going to keep you fulfilled in the long term or even in the short term, really, till the next shiny thing comes up, right? Whereas joy is a deep down feeling of contentment and true. It's not determined by your
gratitude. I would say gratitude too. If you're content, you must be also grateful for all the things that make you content, right?
Super important. Yes. Being grateful for the smallest things. And this is not new to me. I have always thought that life was a gift, like every minute. And I've always lived life really big and exciting because I don't know if I'm going to be here tomorrow. Now, not everyone, including my husband, agrees with that lifestyle of of always living like it's a party, but it is. That's what makes me happy. And
I love it that you're so honest.
I told you, you get what you get. I hold nothing back.
The people that are closest to us know us the best. And sometimes they're not all like, hey, if I have to find the joyful Cindi on social media and not in real life, I'm not so sure that this whole thing is for me.
Yeah. So
although I am guilty of like literally posting something on social and then telling my husband, did you not see that? And he's like, if it was important enough to tell the world, why don't you tell me first? Like, guilty as charged.
Oops. I call that a oops. And so, like you said, gratitude is super important in the process. And just feeling, for me, it's about giving out. That's what makes me feel my best and feel the most joyful. When I'm making someone else's life better, it boomerangs back at me. And now we're both joyful. And it's interesting. I recently had a family member and I thought everybody did what I did. Like I thought it was just, that's normal to pay it forward. To me, I thought that was just the norm. I come to find out it's not actually the norm. Like not everybody thinks about others all the time like I do. And I kind of took that for granted. So it was kind of a little eye opener for me that, you know what, my message still needs to get out there about paying it forward, because even if people in my own family aren't doing it, then certainly beyond that, people aren't getting the message. But I'm just a huge advocate in paying it forward and making someone else's life better in any way you can, as free as a smile. The power and the impact of that is huge. You may not even know it. You might even not know it, but that person does. And that person walked away with a different feeling because you smiled at them.
Well, I know that personally, when I need a dose of joy or of extra, good vibes and positivity, I just have to open LinkedIn and see what Cindi has posted recently, because it just gets me right there. And I think this is true for every one of us, because we're all looking for more positive energy in our life, and especially in the context of sometimes so much negativity that is spread across, especially those social media channels. Just recently, I've dealt with a situation that I'm going to be talking about it probably in a rant, because this is not the time and place, and I don't want to take away from our conversation, but it's so much negativity that is happening in the world. And how then do you personally, get up in the morning and start each day with this immense joy and greater confidence and self-esteem in who you are and the things you're capable of accomplishing? And how can we, piggybacking on that initial question, how can we translate this energy to the world of events?
Okay, so great question. And the short answer of that is I focus on the good. And whatever you focus on in life is what you're going to see. So if I tell you to look at all the green items in your room, you're going to look at all the green items in your room. You're not going to realize that there's also a red book onward, right? You're going to focus on what you're focusing on. I focus on the good, so I only see the good, and that's all I want to see. Now, I understand, trust me, there's tons of bad in this world. I just don't choose to make that my topic of conversation. It's not what I choose to focus on, to look at, to partake in. I protect my peace. So that might mean if somebody is interacting with me and I don't like something they stand for or some comment or whatever, I might just not talk to them again, because it's all about protecting my peace. And I surround myself with people that are going to uplift me and take me to the next level of more joy, more positivity, and more learning. And I don't really enjoy being around negative people.
So how do we take that into the next level up? Because I know you've done so many events, and one of your main jobs is to change the energy in the room, right? It's almost like you are a thermostat for a lot of the people that join some of the events that you're part of. And I'm pretty sure that takes some work sometimes. Like, it's not always easy street, easy doing.
Right. That's true. What honestly helps me is my background. I have a master's degree in counseling. So I have a background in people, basically. And I always love people, embrace people, all people. I can connect to a tree. I mean, I can connect to a candle. I've never met anyone that I can't draw out something that we can connect on, because I'm not snooty. I'm very down to earth. I am not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I can relate to everybody. We're more all the same than we are different. I'm a big believer in that. I'm also a big believer in that people are innately good until they show me that they're not. In general, I try to surround myself with people that are supportive, loving, positive people. I just use my energy.
I love it. Now, piggybacking a little bit on the previous question, would you be willing to give the event planners that are listening to this episode some tips on how to potentially select MCs and presenters that have this ability to engage and inform and energize and entertain their audience, regardless of the event format? And honestly, you doing it in the virtual format, I feel like it's so much harder than if you were to do it in person.
Well, I've done a few in person, and I love both, really. You said earlier, I have 20 years of experience in the virtual world. I've been a virtual education counselor and teacher. I've taught kids in China online. So before I was actually doing the events online. So I am super comfortable with the virtual world, but you do get like a different energy with the in-person. There is a little bit of difference there, I do believe. But with that said, I can't tell you the amount of relationships all over the world, and I could call them on my cell phone right now, like including you, right? We have bonded on multiple levels, right?
And we never met in person yet.
No, yet, but we're going to do an event together.
There you go.
Maybe the Caribbean, since I liked your pictures.
Oh, come on. We'll definitely have to make it an experience. So You being you seems like it brings so much energy just because you fill yourself up with a lot of joy and your perspective on life and with the things that you want to focus on. Do you feel like that is an important attribute to anyone that is put in a position to present to a group or deliver, whatever message it is that they have to
Yeah.
deliver?
That you bring up a really great point. We have all sat through way too many boring presenters, right? Sleepers. You're like, would you please stop talking, right? He's interrupting.
Especially when you do that monotone tone. Like, I totally know what you mean. Like some of those are like 3 hours long. You're like, oh, shoot.
Yeah, I mean, it's bad, right? I mean, there should be some criteria there where you have to at least have a pulse, or something. I can't stand that. So I do believe if there's videos of them in the past as a speaker, reviews and things like that, you can look at to see what kind of energy level. But I think that it's such a key component. It's almost not what you're talking about, right? It's what your energy level is and how you're making other people feel during it. I feel like it's almost more important than the message, because you're not going to really hear the message if you're half asleep and you're like, right?
You're zoomed out or completely zoned out. Agree. Here's a technical question for you. I have to throw it there. Do you think after having done so many virtual events, and you can just stick with virtual, do you think that the quality of an event production has any correlation with how engaged the attendees are?
I do think so. I think that makes a difference. Definitely. If you have poor quality in audio and video, I think that would be a total turnoff. And I'm actually in my studio right now that I use, but I'm still wanted to talk to you afterwards. Like, I even want to improve my own. There's always room for improvement to make the experience even better.
No, it looks very professional and very well lit. And I love that you pay attention to those things, because I feel like way too many virtual presenters, especially because those are the ones that have to make choices for their own presentation, right? Because now there's no AV person, technical person to help elevate some of that stress. You do pay attention to those things, and I really appreciate that.
Oh, definitely. I recently watched a podcast, and this is kind of, I think, interesting. So the two women were having a conversation, two, good public figures. One was an author, one was the interviewer or whatever, but they were in very casual clothes. We're talking like straight from the gym, right? And, hair tie and everything, like exactly how I look 24/7, unless I'm here. But you know what? It made me watch them because I could relate to them better than somebody that came straight out of magazine, let's say, and was talking to me, right? Like that was my norm. And I sat there and watched them because of that. And the audio and the video was closer than what you and I are. So they were like way closer to the screen. But I thought that was the first time I've ever seen that. And I actually liked it.
It was different.
It was different. I mean, very different.
I don't even have makeup aside from like my, eyelashes and my lip gloss. I don't know if I'm comfortable with doing that. I'm like how much shine is it right now on my face from like 100 degrees right now in my studio and all those lights pointing at me. I mean, seriously, that alone is just giving me like an extra level of heat wave, But to your point, it's important to notice that we're only shown this much.
Right.
And I just came from the gym and I am still halfway dressed like I did.
And truth be told, I may or may not have pajama pants on.
But hey, we just showed you guys behind the scenes what's happening. And, I am more comfortable when I present myself like a little more presentable, no pun intended. It literally makes me feel more confident. And I could always like just come on, with my gym clothes on. I just don't feel like professionally I would go in a meeting wearing that,
Yeah. Well, I think today it's become more acceptable, with the at-home remote workforce to, I mean, I'm sure you've seen this on all the calls that I do, there'll be a room of 20, and all the people, a lot of them will have hats on, that's the, I didn't shower today hat. I get that. Like, I'm that girl too.
Oh, that's so funny. Okay, Cindi, hold that thought as we take just a small, brief moment to acknowledge our podcast sponsor and supporter. We will be right back to continue this conversation with our guest, Cindi. Before we move any further, I wanted to give a quick shout out to our main sponsor, Trifan Events, which is a boutique event planning and production agency that will come alongside you, offering personalized event planning and technical support, strategic event design, production and technology management, and flawless execution for live, virtual, and hybrid events. The team at Trifan Events is passionate about planning and producing event experiences that get people involved with true moments of interaction, engagement, and co-creation, while offering white glove treatment throughout the entire planning process, enabling you to reach your event goals with the use of creativity, production tools, and event technology. Find out how Trifan Events can plan and produce your event become memorable. Go to trifanevents.com. Welcome back to our conversation here with my dear friend, featured guest, Cindi. Now, Cindi, you mentioned a little bit, you touched on LinkedIn and how it's helped you build this audience that now you have, and how you've used the paying it forward on LinkedIn as well as in real life. How can we build a business? Let me rephrase that. How can one build a real connection with people on LinkedIn in a way that is meaningful and in a way that will elevate business, especially if you're a small business owner?
Bring up a great point. Now, my view again might not be typical of all LinkedIn users, but I'm a relationship person. I'm a relationship builder. That's just who I am. So I view LinkedIn kind of like, yes, it's online, but it's still a relationship building tool. Many people count their followers and things like that, and whatever works for you. I don't have a large following at all, but what I have is a lot of relationships with people that, like, I really know them, they really know me, and they're not just a number, they're not just a follower at all. We connect outside of LinkedIn. I've got gifts from people, I've sent gifts, people I don't know, because you have relationships with people. So for me, it's more than just an audience per se.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we're in a room together, only we're, and you develop a relationship. Just like you and I, we connected out our love for trees and kids and audio, video, all this stuff. So it's just, we developed that relationship, not by you just liking one of my posts, right? We communicated for a long time, actually, before we actually became as close friends as we are. If you remember, probably like several months.
At least a year that I remember noticing a lot of the posts that you were posting. And honestly, in the beginning, I was liking them more before I took the step to commenting in the same way you did that. And I feel like this is an important element to mention, because many people out there, they're kind of like in the background, not to call them lurkers, but it's like they're not really watching you, but they're watching you, but they're never saying anything, right? Like, if you really care about building a relationship with someone, you have to communicate. Communication is the way people have functioned for millennia. Just liking and emojis, not enough to build.
It's not. You're right. So, I do love LinkedIn for the relationships that I've built and like how it can translate into business. You support each other, right? So I might share a post from someone, or I'll shout out people's names and what they're doing. I will always look for an opportunity to connect people. I love connecting people. This person needs to know this person. Choop. That's how you help people along in life. You never know what one conversation, one comment could actually lead to, right?
That is so true. I mean, I definitely have had a lot of business relationships formed on LinkedIn, and that is flash news for anyone that's probably like 30 and younger that I have encountered, and they're like, what is LinkedIn? Like, who uses LinkedIn? Only old people use LinkedIn. Like, you have no idea. You need to get on it to realize the potential and the power that that platform provides, especially if you are an entrepreneur and a business owner and someone that is seriously interested in pursuing professional business relationships.
Right. Exactly.
Well, let's pivot now just to, use our word that we're so tired of. Let's dissect a little bit wellness and work-life balance, and how does that look like for you? What does embedding wellness, and I mean mental, physical, emotional, into your everyday life look like? How do we strategically think about doing that well in order to arrive to a balance that works while supporting each other in the process?
Boy, you make some good questions.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Self-care and wellness is near and dear to my heart. It is something that I talk about in every event because we make candles, and candles are scientifically proven to be used in wellness. It could change your atmosphere, change your limbic system, your brain, and totally transform your mood. So self-care is something I talk about all the time. We live, let's face it, in a crazy pants world. No one's going to disagree with me on that. Crazy pants world. Right. So with that said, I am a huge proponent that you must take time out of your day, out of your week, out of your life to focus on yourself. Like we talked about earlier, the social media detox, that's only one portion, right? What about every day being outside, using your body physically, at least a 30-minute walk, taking care of your spiritual side, whatever that might mean to you, taking care of your nutrition and your water. I look at it as consumption. So anything you consume, it could be media, it could be what you listen to, it could be what you eat, drink, anything that you consume is your well-being and part of who you are. So any one of those altering states, if you get out of balance in them, could lead to not a great situation. So that's kind of what I do. For the last 20 years, my self-care routine has always been the same. I'm a bath person. There's two types of people in the world. There's bath and not bath. I am a bath.
Shower one just cut it.
Yeah. So I like to take a bath with candles all around, super hot, sometimes wine, sometimes not, most of the time wine.
Essential ingredient to your candle purchase.
So that has always been my self-care routine before Crazy Pants World. But now it still continues. I also used to love running. I wish I could get back into that. I need to. I love the runner's high. But I highly recommend that everybody have something, whether it's meditation, journaling, gardening, lifting weights. It could be anything, coloring books. It doesn't matter. Whatever you can do to zone in to something that's going to relieve the stress from your body and focus on your self-care is amazing. Everyone needs to.
I love it. Well, you've given some really great tips, and maybe I'll try the bath a little longer than normal. I don't know. We'll see. Honestly, I'm the one person that in our household doesn't necessarily use the tub that much. My husband, on the other hand, loves it. We just need some candles around to make it romantic.
I'll send you some after.
Oh my goodness, it's so funny. So, Cindi, this has been a fantastic conversation so far. So sad to come to a close. I would love if you could give one piece of advice that could maybe capture the essence of living well, and what does it look like to maybe take tiny actions that produce huge positive differences in your life, in your events life, just to experience life fully and full of joy.
Okay, great question. So 3 things that are free: a good sleep, a good laugh, and a good hug. Those are priceless, right? Let's think back to the pandemic. The one thing that I miss so much is those good squeeze hugs that just release all those endorphins. I love to hug like a friend. So highly recommend that. It's free, it's yummy, and you feel great afterwards. Another thing, this is something I always talk about, is realize that the whole world is going through similar circumstances, and we all have a lot on our shoulders, a lot of burdens we're feeling, way more than you will ever know about or see online, because you see a 1-second picture or a video and then edited and everything filtered and everything else. Okay. You have no idea the other 23 and a half hours, what's going on in that person's life. But I am here to assure you, Everybody is more similar than different. We all have stuff going on. With that said, I am asking you to stop and realize that and be kind. Be kind. You don't know what that person is dealing with. As humans, we should be kind to each other, knowing that they're having issues just like we might be having issues. And a little kindness can go a very long way. So that is really one of the keys to joy, is focusing on other people, not consuming all that negativity we talked about earlier, and being your best person and spreading joy to others really will change you. It really will.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for all those insightful tips, all the advice, and your experience that you share with our audience today. If anybody would love to follow you on LinkedIn, connect with you, or anywhere else, where can they do that? Probably just set it out there, LinkedIn. Yes. How can they find you?
For LinkedIn, I would love for people to follow or connect with me. For doing group events for your companies, you can contact me at Cindi, Cindi, at makesy.com. And we can go from there.
Let's spell Makesy for anyone that's just listening and doesn't see the nice logo on the video.
Okay, that's MAKESY.com.
Well, Cindi, this was fabulous to have you on the show. I feel joyful just by talking to you every single time that's happening. I promise you. There you go. I am glad that we made time and were able to put this on the calendar and do it. I will see you on LinkedIn soon.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, friends, this is it for today's episode. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I did and learned a thing or two about Cindi, as well as the things that she's passionate about and how can you refill that joy container in your own life. Thank you so much for staying all the way till the end. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast on whichever social media platform you're on. And stay tuned for our next episode, airing out every week on Friday.
Thank you for listening to the Events Demystified podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, please take a moment to review it, rate it, and share it with other event professionals that could benefit from it. Connect with us on social at Events Demystified Podcast. We would love to hear from you and what you're up to. If you'd like to learn more about Trifan Event Services and find out if we're a good fit in supporting your event, can we help your event be successful with a 20-minute free consultation? Link in the episode's notes. Thanks for tuning in.